Good afternoon. This is Tiffany Simpson-Crumpley, and I will be your moderator for today's next installment in our Center for Practice Transformation Best Chance Network and Wise Woman Rule training series. The subject for today is MEDIT 101, Tips and Tricks for Using the System for Your Best Chance Network and Wise Woman Programs. I will serve as your moderator today. I'm the education and training consultant for this journey today, and we have the pleasure of having Miss Beth Williams. She is the Best Chance Network and Wise Woman Data Manager, and so she will be walking you through this system that is core for the most essential functions for activating and implementing your program. And the deeper understanding you have for using the system to get your PA codes, to monitor how many women you're serving, and the depth of service that you're providing, the better you'll be able to be reimbursed and also be able to serve more women effectively based on trends that you see in the data. So we will go ahead and proceed with the presentation. And just get started today. So thank you for joining us and spending your lunch hour with us, which lets me know that you are committed to providing the best services possible for women that need it the most. By the end of this webinar, participants will learn how to log into MEDIT, learn how to request a PA code and add a new client, and learn how to avoid creating a duplicate client, and learn how to run a claim status report. So it's important to mention that funds for online training have been supported by South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control with funding from the Centers for Disease Control. So we thank them for giving us rich resources to provide high quality training and education for you. We will have a Q&A session with Beth today. We've allotted time for that, and if for any reason you can't stay with us for the entire duration, we will make the replay links available. Also, if you look in your right-hand panel, there are two handouts that have already been provided. The actual presentation slides from today, as well as replay links from our past webinars that we did from beginning in February all the way through June of this year. So you have those as well. Our guest speaker is Ms. Beth Williams. She is the data manager for the Best Chance Network and Wise Woman programs. She is an Alabama native and married mother of 2 children. She is a graduate of Troy University and the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And she has served as the data manager for South Carolina Best Chance Network and Wise Woman since 2010. Without further ado, I give you and leave you in the able hands of Ms. Beth Williams.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me for lunch. I'm going to talk about today what MEDIT is and just a few things about it, like Tiffany mentioned. MEDIT actually stands, I like to know what things stand for, Medical Information Tracking. It is a HIPAA-compliant and online data and billing management system. Oxbow, which you see the icon at the top left, is the company that supplies MEDIT, and it's been doing this for over 20 years. And today, over a dozen states and tribes use MEDIT. So that's, of course, including us. South Carolina, we've used MEDIT for both our Best Chance Network and Wise Woman programs since 2009, right before I came on board. So, next slide. Let's go back one, I think.
There we go.
Yes, okay, thank you. I'm usually doing this training with a live screen, so these slides are screenshots of what our live system looks like. So each site, provider site, will need to determine which individuals would need to have access to Medit. And these are usually the people that are requesting PA codes or who are checking claim status. And anyone that would likes to look at the history of the patient, it's in a nice, neat format in Medit. So once you determine which people need to have access to Medit, you will contact us and we will provide you with a username and initial password. So we'll also give you the website address. So you would log into the site, you would pick your type in your username that we provide you, and of course the CDC program code will be SC for South Carolina. Once you log in, you will be asked 3 security questions. And you should select those 3 security questions by using the drop-down box. And these questions will only be asked the first time you log in. They will also be asked later on when you reset your password, like in a year. So your password that then you'll create will be at least 8 characters long. The password must have at least 1 letter, 1 number, and 1 special character, as you can see below that. There's a lot of those. So, and anytime you do forget your password, you can click on that trouble logging in link and it will help you to reset your password, and it sometimes will contact me as well. So I will be glad to help with that. Next slide. So the first time you log in, there is an Oxbow service agreement and also South Carolina agreement that you have to accept in order to use Medit by clicking on that radio button, if you can see the little accept button. So that's all that legal stuff that we always have to use, and because there is confidential patient information on here. And also because of the HIPAA health information, remember to log out when you're not using Medit. So like if you go to lunch, which you might later today, go ahead and log out because you don't want people looking at your screen seeing patient data. Also, the system does time out for the same reason after 20, and it's now 30 minutes. They've just changed that. We can do it for 30 minutes now. So again, when you do have to reset your password, this is a tip that a lot of users I've had to help them with. When it asks, see the arrow is pointing to current password. So when it asks for that, it's not the password you think you forgot. It's the one you've logged in to the system with, whether it's the initial password or the temporary password you get when you forget your password. So current means that's the one you got this far with. And then new password and confirm password, that would be your new password that you'd create. And of course, when you do reset your password, it can't be the one you've already used. So, okay, next slide, please. And we're coming up to how to request PA codes. And again, PA stands for prior authorization. It is our way of tracking how many patients our program might see during the year, only to make sure we have enough money to pay for these women's services. So that's why we're not telling y'all how to operate your practice. This is just, we want to give you a PA code to make sure we could pay you for this lady, her services. So that is why we have the PA code system in there. And so we can, and during the year, say we have been great and spent all our money, then we would need to limit those codes, and so you would know not to see to try to request a code. So first, in Medit, you would search for and then select the client for the person you're wanting to request a PA code for. And so you kind of see the search screen in the middle, and you can search by name, date of birth, zip code, address. So you search for, and let's say life is perfect and you find her and can access her. So there she is at the bottom, Sarah Test. And so at the left, when you select her, at the left of the screen, you can click Request Authorization. It's a clickable link. So that would be the step you do. And I'm ready for the next slide again. So once you hit that button, you would select the provider, which when you get your login, you can only see your contract or provider's patients. You can't see anybody else's. So you would select the correct provider and then put the date of service that the client will be coming in. And then you would complete all the items on the eligibility information section. And this year we're now doing serving women less than or equal to 250% of the federal poverty guidelines. This is a little change. In the past, we did 200%. So it will calculate that for you once you put in her income and her number of people living on the income, and then it will calculate the federal poverty guideline, which you'd see on this woman on the bottom. So she is eligible. And then it mentions the medical release form, and this is DHEC form 1099, and this form is signed by the client annually and maintained in her file. And so you check yes for that and indicate insurance, which usually is none, but we do serve women who are underinsured, so you would select the correct category once you go here. So, okay, next slide. So once you put in her eligibility, then you select what services that you're going to provide for her. We're statewide with what we call, in Medit, it's called BCC. That is BCN, also the Best Chance Network. Nationally, the program is known as NBCCEDP. So, since Medit serves many programs, they put BCC here. But so anyway, so you would select that, and then if your site offers WISEWOMAN, then you would also select that if she's in the right age group, 40 to 64. And then you would go to the top right of the page in Medit and hit that Request Authorization button, which I've shown in orange there. Then a screen will pop up, and it will show you her authorization confirmation. And this just has her authorization number, PA code number, and it says what she's due for, and also has some information. And at this point, you can click Export at the top right. You can export a PDF with PHI or without PHI. And this is another tip. This is the only time that you can export and save this PDF, or you could print it. And that way, it's just a nice, neat form. It has her PA code on it. But of course, this information is still in Medit, but you can't go back and get that nice, neat little form. So if you're wanting save that, this is the time to do it. And another note about PA codes, we're in year 27 of the Best Chance Network, and which started June the 30th. And so each PA code for this year will start with a 27. That's just another fact to know, and we look at those often in the office to know, is she eligible this year? Was this a year 26 code? We look at that on a daily basis when we're entering patient data. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, if your search for the client doesn't result in any matches, then you can add the client to Medit and then request the PA code. So that first example I showed was you found the patient and then you just requested her PA code. So this time it's a client that's new to Best Chance Network, and so you would then click Add Client up there, client info, and then click Add Client, and then it will be on her enrollment screen, which is blank, so you would need to fill in her last name, first name, her social security number, her date of birth, and that's at the top of that screen. So I guess I'm ready for the next slide to show the rest. So you put in her name and that info at the top, then you put her address and especially her zip code, and then phone number if you got it. Another important element, we need to know her ethnicity. That's important for CDC to know whether or not she is Hispanic. Also, you can put in her language, primary language, and then race. Race is also important for us to collect, as well as her education. So we've got, it says last grade completed. So these items are required by CDC for us to send in our data submissions to them. They do not get the name or address. They will get the zip code, but they do get race and ethnicity, but they don't have any identifying information except like the zip code. But I don't know how you could identify somebody just from that, I guess. And also then at the bottom of the screen, the enrollment information, the date enrolled, and then you would click the button Add Client. So now you've got the new client in there, and then you can do those steps I talked about earlier to request her PA code for this program year. Okay, next slide. And again, talking about these data elements, CDC does require all programs to fill out these data elements for our reports. Our reports to them, and then they report to Congress. So the better data quality, like the race, ethnicity, if we can collect all of that, we get more funding from CDC, which means more women served, and more money for your screening practice. So that's why the data is so important for the programs. Next slide. Now I'd like to talk about how to avoid creating duplicate clients. So when you're in the perfect world, that first example, we found the client and we requested her PA code. And the second example, we created a new client and requested her PA code. But since our program has been around for 26 years, we do have women coming back in, and maybe they've moved, so they're new to you, but they're already in Medit. So it will pop up the message, that's in the middle, that one client matched what you were searching for, but you don't have access to her. So that's when you can contact us and we will give you access to her. So you would call the PA line or fax a PA request form in these cases. So because if you go ahead and add a client, then she's a duplicate, and so that's not giving us a true picture of the data until we clean that up. So this is just a nice way if you could do it this way instead of adding a duplicate client. I'm ready for the next slide. So that's how to request PA codes. Now for the people that check claims in your office, if you want to see what has been entered, so these are forms or claims you've sent in, you can go to Reports Utilities and then Billing, and then at the very bottom it will pop up Summary of Claims, and that's the one you'll pick. So at this point you'll put in the dates of service you're interested in seeing. So remember, the date range for this report is date of service, not date, say, you send in the forms. So that put those dates in, and then you can click Generate Report. And another tip for this report, if you run it quite often, sometimes it, even though like you'll put the dates in, it might not do it correctly. So I'd suggest each time you run this report to click that Clear Criteria button. You can see it kind of near the bottom. It's maybe hard to see, but it says Clear Criteria. I would really suggest, that's a lot of questions I get, is my report's not working, and once we click that button, it usually runs just fine. So that's a big tip there. Okay, I'm ready for the next one. So you click Generate Report for your summary of claims, and it runs, and then so you'll come up with a summary report and a detailed report. And at this, I like the summary report, and you can then export this report. And I usually do it as a CSV file, so I can put it in Excel and sort it and do whatever I want to with it, or you can export it as a PDF. And I'll insert another tip here. Any screen in Medit that you're on, if you have a question about it, you can click the H at the top right, and that will pop up a screen that has some general information about that screen. So in this instance, if I had clicked it, it would tell me that the dates that they're talking about are the dates of service. So that, is a little helpful to me. And like I said, I usually export it as a CSV, comma separated values file. And this file will contain a column called F, which stands for field, missing. And so that will either be blank if there's no issues with the claim, but if it has some codes in it, it's an error key, which I'll show you how later to find what those errors are. And so, for example, you've sent in a claim for a mammogram, and so it's entered, but then we don't have the actual report entered yet, her results of that mammogram. It will have like an S18 in that error column, and so that means it's missing the report. before it needs the report before it can be paid. Because like I said earlier, CDC wants all the data. So we do have a claim for something, but we've got to also send CDC the results of our procedures that we pay for. And so this is a check and balance thing for that. Okay, I'm ready for the next slide. And these are more tips that I keep talking about. One of them is you can go up to Reports, Utilities, Admin, and then a thing called Blank Forms. And in the blank forms, you can find this billing error key, and that's what it's called. There's a whole list of items when you pull up blank forms, and one's called billing error key. It's a PDF you can look at and see what these errors mean. There are also forms in blank forms, which is, I guess, why they named it that. So forms that filled out for our program. There's also some just guides, and that's why I didn't include some handouts for this presentation, because in blank forms you've got how to request a PA code. That's one of the guides in there. So and it goes step by step how to request a PA code. And there are lots of useful things under there. Another helpful item in Medit is on the left sidebar. You can go there, and there's a place called, it says Summary of Services, and this is very handy. You can click on it. It pops up a separate screen, and it will show the lady's history, and as we call them, cycles. Say she may have been in for 26 years. So it would list all the services she had, where she had them, what the results were. And that's very nice when it is a patient maybe you are seeing for the first time, and she does have some history there in Medit. Another thing is called Quick Tips, and you can click on that, and it will pop up a screen that has ways to refresh your cache. Sometimes we need to do that to minimize errors that we're having, like with screens loading. So if you're having difficulties with Medit, I would suggest trying that Quick Tips Refresh Cache first, and then we can go from there. Another handy place in Medit is on the right sidebar, where it lists due dates, and you can expand it with a little arrow, and it will show you the due dates for her office visit, mammogram, WISEWOMAN screening, Pap test, based on her past history with these procedures or her age if she's new. And it'll be in red if she's overdue for this service. And you can also refresh it to make it, force it to recalculate if you think it's not quite right. So, but it's good to look at this. So, okay, next slide.
Thanks, Beth, for all of that valuable information. We are now at a point where you can ask your questions. If you look at your control panel on the lower right hand side, and the last drop down menu is a chat function, and you can either raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask the question live, or you can use your chat function on your console and just type your question in, and I will be monitoring the questions. And it looks like we already have one that's come in. Let's see. This question comes from Dominique Speaks, and she says, why are you unable to quote unquote access patients at times in Medit?
Well, the main reason would be that they have been seen at some other facility and are not associated with your facility yet, because we've got these strong HIPAA guidelines in Medit. So that's the main reason, and that we can then associate your facility with this patient.
Okay. Okay, Dominique, hopefully that answers your question. If any of you have additional questions, you can use the chat function. Let's see, we might have another one.
Okay.
Yes, you did answer her question.
Good. Yes,
So,
just it's a real quick fix to do that. So you just let us know. So thank you.
wonderful. Okay, are there any other questions before we part ways today? So, Beth, is there any restating of tips that you find if I'm a new employee that's been placed in charge of a Best Chance Network or a Wise Woman program? What would be like your top three nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Well, a big thing is to try to be patient. If there is a patient that you should be able to see, but she's not able to be accessed by you, so that just be patient and contact us, and we can enable you to see her. The next thing would be to, in the summary of claims report, to clear the criteria before you run it each time. That's just I've just run into that a lot, so that's a real good tip. And another thing is look around Medit. The summary of services, like I said, is very handy, and different areas that you can look at. There are some areas you can't because of HIPAA, but we've tried to open it up as much as we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Beth, for sharing your time today. And quick question, if a staff person or runs into issues with Medit, are you the first line of fire, or is there a contact within the local offices at DHEC?
Well, I'm usually the last line of fire, but
Right.
you can contact Deisha Adams at the central office. She's our contracts manager, and then we will go from there if we need to.
Do you happen to have Disha's email? I'm going to type it into the chat so everyone has it.
Okay. I will look. That's one thing I forgot to.
Okay, so that's an important one. So what we will do is provide Disha's contact information in the follow-up email to everyone. Oh, and let's see, there is another question that has come in from Ms. Dominique. I was unable to find the Best Chance Network breast and cervical cancer screening services cost explanation form in Spanish on the Medit website. Any ideas how to address that?
I will look, and we will get that to you. I know your email, so
Okay.
I'm not sure why it's not on there, or it could be in a name it's hard to find. So, but we will
Okay.
get that to you.
Okay, so our promises to you is to get
Oh,
Disha's information.
I've got her address. It's
Okay.
Deisha. It's Adams, ADAMSDL at dhec.sc.gov.
And I'm just typing that into the chat box now.
Okay.
Yes, Beth is in almost near you're in Columbus, Georgia, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So we like to have a local contact, and ultimately whatever Disha cannot address, she will contact Beth on your behalf. So definitely contact Disha first. I'm sending that information to everyone. You should see that pop up in your panel. And so contact Disha for first line questions, and anything that requires more complex knowledge and expertise, Beth will provide that information. So you have the slides. If you click on the handouts portion of your console, you'll see two handouts, the BCN Outreach Series Meted PowerPoint presentation, that's there for you, as well as the BCN and training replay links in the handout section. So those are yours for future reference. And if you have any new staff that has come on board for the remainder of this year, we have some exciting things coming your way. We are in the process of converting those webinar replays into courses that can be taken by any new staff, or a refresher for existing staff, just the basics of BCN and WISEWOMAN, what the programs are about, the ins and outs of billing. We had a wonderful boot camp in June and received positive feedback. It was full attendance, well attended, and the two things that came out of that boot camp is that folks wanted more intimate knowledge of billing, so we're working on a live billing training that we hope to get done by the end of this year, and as well as the courses that we're building for you as we speak. My name is Tiffany Simpson-Crumpley. I'm your point of contact. If you have other suggestions for education and training that will be valuable to you and instrumental in helping you serve more women, because the better you implement the program, number one, you meet a couple of objectives. You increase revenue for your practice, you meet quality improvement metrics for things like HEDIS, if you're going through a patient-centered medical home process, that those much of the work that you'll be doing through these programs automatically qualifies you for credit in those quality payment program and merit-based incentive programs. So, and that's another key point. SCORE provides an array of services to transform your practice in addition to these value-added services we discussed today. So if you'd like more information, you have my email address about technical assistance related to other practice transformation needs. And let's see if there's any more questions. Actually, there are two more. Please copy me on that email. We get lots of Hispanics. That is from Ms. Luz Lugaro. She is at North Central Family Medical Clinic. Yes, Luz, I will get you that information in terms of getting that that cost explanation form in Spanish. We will get that to you in a follow-up email, hopefully within the next 2 business days. Okay? You are very welcome. De nada. Yes, so this concludes our training for today. Once again, I'd like to thank Beth Williams for contributing her time today. Often, you know, she has to schedule individually with programs, so we're trying to make her expertise more widespread so she doesn't have to schedule so many individualized trainings. So with this webinar, as well as the course that this will be converted to, you'll have a standing training from her of all things Meted. So thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for updates for value-added training and courses coming your way for 2017. Take care. My name is Tiffany Simpson, and thank you for joining us today.